What's up, guys? Welcome back to the part of our dartfrog tutorial series. So after connecting Flutter to our Todo API, leaving it open is very risky. You can as well testify to that. So today we'll be doing full authentication with JWT tokens, bcrypt hashing, and protected route. So basically, after we have finished the Todo API integration, now it's time to add some authentication to it. So we'll be adding user authentication that this user can sign in and can sign up and sign in. Basically, then we'll be able to like wrap the authentication around the Todo. So unauthorized user won't be able to access Todo basically. So that's what we'll be doing today. So we'll be using JWT to tokenize user authentication, and also we'll be using bcrypt to hash user password basically. So the plan basically is to users register to password hash with bcrypt. So this is the package here, this bcrypt basically for hashing password basically. So from there, then we use login to verify the hash, then sign with JWT. For JWT, we'll be using this package, which is that's the JSON web token. So as you can see, JSON web token, that's JWT. And if you are new to the industry, JWT basically means tokenizing user authentication. So by the time the user sign up or sign in, there will be a token that is generated for the user. So the token is what the user will use to fetch any data that is related to that user. So that's like the identity of that user basically throughout the lifetime. Throughout the time frame that the user is requesting for anything from the database basically. So that's JWT. The basic aspect to it. There might be deeper meaning to it here. So that's pretty much what we'll be doing today. So we'll be doing the authentication. So I'll be continuing from where we stopped the last time, and if you don't have access to this code base, you can watch the previous video where we did the basic crud API, where we work on this Todo API, where we have this index, just basic get, put, post, and the likes, and the dynamic route as well, and also the middleware, and also where we integrated the backend to our front end, which is the Flutter app. So everything is on GitHub. You can get access to it. The link will be in the description, and also this is how it look. Everything is pretty much here. So that's it basically. So we start with integrating we start with installing this that package to get started. So inside our prospect, again, it will be up to date. Just pull this code base or just watch the other video to watch how this code base work basically to understand this. As well, if you're new to this channel, make sure to like the video, subscribe, and also drop an honest comment in the comment section below. All right, let's get straight into it. So we've been installing bcrypt. So let me just copy this, or let me just copy it straight up like this, then install that JSON web token. So install it like this. So after that, let me just run that pub get. So in my terminal, let me just clear this up. So that pub get. So this will just install the package basically. So that's pretty much it. All right. So inside our to-do now, we have to plan the user journey. Literally, we almost touched all the files inside this our dartfrog projects, just to wrap around the authentication around the to-do that the existing to-do basically. So currently this user folder is just a test folder, so let me just leave it. So we'll be creating a new folder, authentication basically. So the authentication will only contain login and sign up, login and register basically. So inside our route, since dartfrog is route based, we'll just create a new folder and just call it auth like this. So inside auth, I'll create two files. Let me just login.dat, then register.dat as well. So inside our login and register, that is where we'll be doing all the work basically. So let me just start with login. So we can just quickly start some things inside our login. So basically our login is verifying the user credential basically. So now to start, let's just start with the feature response. So feature response, then on request. So basically what we have been doing on request contest, and you got the contest like this, must be asynchronous because it's a feature function. So the first thing to check now is to check if the login must be a post method, because we are submitting data. So we can check if the user is passing the right method, the right method basically. So we can just check if contest.request method is not post like that. Okay, so that's good. We can just return status code 400. Also, let's just return a body. You can just say method not allow like that, just to pass a message to the front end dev. So the next thing now, let's just declare body. So we can just declare body should be equal to await contest.request. Then JSON must be in JSON format. So let's mark it as map. Yeah, so that's what we want to do. So the next thing now is to create the username and password field. So let's just create username. So the key value is username, for username, and the key value for password is password basically. So just say username like that must be string, and also password as well, so as string basically. So that's pretty much it. Then the next thing now is just to check if the username is not known. I mean, if it's not empty, if the user is actually passing a value to our username, and also before we actually do anything. So if it is none or not, we can return an error message. So let's just do that. So let's just say username equal to none. Also we can check for if it's empty as well. So we can check username that is empty. The front-end dev can just put username without passing anything, so we are just doing the two validation. So let's do the same for password. So yeah, so that's what we want to do. So username is got to none, or username is empty, password is got to none, password is empty. Then we return a status code for, so we can just say username and password are required basically. So that's pretty much it, what we want to pass to the front-end dev. Yeah, so that's that for this if. So the next thing now is to check if it has passed through this, the user is actually passing the data. Then we can now fetch from our database, or whichever table that we have. So currently we're just using in memory, I mean the user memory, so we are not storing inside the database. So just to for tutorial purpose here, so we can just say user is equal to find user by username, then inside we can just call the username. Then if username is equal to none, so we are just checking, we are just verifying. So if username is equal to none, or the bcrypt, so we'll be calling the bcrypt package now. So just bcrypt, I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that right, but I think that should be it. So you can just say check password. Check pw, then password, user password. Let me just change this one to password hash. User password hash. So let me install this package. Bcrypt, like that. So return, I mean that's if the username is the username is known or it does not exist, then we are just returning invalid invalid username or password if the password also is not correct. So that's that for this particular part. Then the next thing is to check for the JWT part. So you can just say JWT should be equal to the JWT. The JWT class is inside the .json web token. So inside this now we can say ID, the ID of the user, since this is just signing. So the user have an existing ID already. So ID, then the username as well, the username of the user. So username basically. Then the next thing now is just to call the token. So we generate the token for the user. Then we call JWT .secret. So secret. Sorry, didn't know what I want. Okay, secret. Then I'll create a secret later. So let's just leave it like this. Then close. All right. So after this, now we can just return response. That's once the user signed in successfully. So I'll run through this again, so you can just have what we are doing here. I mean, understanding of what we are doing here. So the token. Sorry, why is this guy generating nonsense? All right, token. Then token. Okay, that should be inside quotation. So let's just finish this first. So this will be inside quote like this, right? Double column. So that's pretty much it. So we are going to create the function for this find user by username now. So let's just have it like that. So basically let me just run through it from the start. So the first thing we are checking if the front end or the user is sending the right request, the right method. The right method is post. So if the method is not post, then we are returning method is not allowed. Then the next thing now is we are creating the body where the user can, the username and password. We are collecting what the user is sending, basically the username and password. Then we are checking if the username and password is not known, then and I mean if it is none, then we are passing an error message. So if it checks through this, I mean if the username is not known and password is not known, then the next thing is to move to this next stage. So this next stage, basically we are fetching, we are checking through the username, I mean through this function that we are going to be creating soon. So find user by username, which is username, the username the user passed here. So we are checking the username. So if user, since we have already created a variable here that is fetching through this find user by username function that will be created later. So if is equal to none, or this check password is not true as well, then we are returning this response, I mean 41, which is invalid user or password. So if this checks true as well, I mean it does not return this response, that means the user is not known and the password is not known. So basically if the user is known, that means the user does not exist, and if the password is not correct, that means that is not the correct password. Yeah, so the next thing now, we are just fetching the JWT, then we are generating the ID and also the username, then we are passing a token. So the token, we are going to create a secret key basically to store the token, I mean the secret key for the token. So it will be like an env file so env file normally have the key and value, so we are going to be creating a key here just to store the secret key here basically. So after then we return the token to the front end. So the token will be used to do whatsoever that the user wants to have access to. All right, so now the next thing, let's just touch the register part as well, so we can just finish this authentication. So just like we did on login, so let's just create the future. Sorry, this should be response, then on request, then we have request contest, then contest synchronous. All right, so inside our what's it called, register, basically we are checking also if the method is 405, I mean it's post rather, so we can pass. So let me just copy this not to waste time. So paste it here. Let me just import dartfrog here, so we can remove this error. All right, so after that as well, we are fetching this username and password. So let me just copy it here as well. So the on register as well is just username and password that the user is sending as well. So let me just paste this. All right, so that's pretty much it. So that's that. So once the user send the username and password, then we are getting it as well. So the next thing again is to check if the username is empty or none before fetching anything. So the same function that we have here. So I've just copied this again, then come to our register, then we do this check as well. So that's pretty much it. So after that, now we can now create an account for the user if the user passed through all this check. So now the next thing now is just to check the find user by username, that function that we are going to be creating later. So let me just copy it here so I can create it later. So find user by username. So find user by username. So the username here. So if it's not equal to none, that is if the user is not equal to none, then we can return user already exists. I hope you understand that, because if it's not equal to none, that means it already exists. It's only if it is none that it does not exist. So that's pretty much it. So that's what we are doing here. So if it is not none, that means it already exists here. So after that, now if it is none, that it does not exist before, then we can now proceed to hashing the password. So let me just say hashed password here should be equal to, then we call our bcrypt crypt like this here. Then we say hash pw, then we can hash the password. So bcrypt dot gensort. Yeah, if you check through the documentation, it's part of what they have here. So that's how it works. So you can see check password, hash password, you can see bcrypt gensort. Yeah, so that's basically, so that's how it works. So let me just close this. So basically what we are doing is hashing the password here. So let me import our bcrypt here. All right, I think I made the mistake with the spelling here, so let me paste it here. All right, so we are hashing the password. So after hashing the password, then we can proceed to creating the user. So we can say user, then we are going to create this function later as well. So create user, so it's just to create the user, then we further pass user to username, send the function that will be creating, then the password hash, hash password basically. So after then we can now return the response, valid response. So instead of returning what's it called, this table, let's just return the JSON that we have already created. So just return JSON like this. So inside the body, I'll just return the user. So this user, so it will be in JSON format. So I can just say user to JSON. So to JSON like that. All right. So that's that for our register. I mean login and register. So the next thing now is just to create like a user model. So the same way we have inside this lib now, you can see that we have to do model where we have the blueprint of the to do. So we are going to create user model as well. So it's pretty simple. So let's just inside our screen now. So I'll just create a new file and just call it user model like this, model.dat. So inside our user model, so I'll just create a class. Let me just say user. So inside the user, basically constant user. So I think we only need ID, username and password hash. So hash password, whichever one. So password hash, just create final string ID, then username, then hash password. So the next thing we can just say to JSON as well. So ID, username, then so to JSON. So basically it's only the ID and username. We are not storing what's it called, password, I mean the hash password. So that's pretty much it. So for this, because of dartfrog lint, so I'll just put this guy just to remove this missing documentation for public member. So let's just put this because I don't like the error, whatever. Okay, let's just put for this guy as well. Okay, let's do for this as well. All right, okay, I think we're pretty done with this. So after this now, after the user model, so the next thing now is just to create a user repository, the same format we did. If you check through this to do, we create a blueprint, then we create to do repository as well. So we'll just do the same for our user as well. So I'll just create a new file. I'll call it user repository. .dat. So inside our user repository, so we just have the what's it called, find user by username function that we are trying to call inside our login and sign up, and also the create user as well. So the two functions will be inside this our user repository file. So that's that. So the first thing now, let me just create a const for our UID basically to have like a generated ID basically. So let me close this. Since we already have the package installed already, let me just import it. Okay, this AI assistant is not allowing me to. All right, let's just proceed. So user, so let's just create user. So it should be equal to string, then the user. So that's pretty much it for this. So you can just close it like this. So this is the user model inside our user model. So let me just import the user inside the user model. Let me also import this UID. I think we have the package already. Okay, sorry, it should be u like this. So UID, so we can just import. So that's that. Then the next thing now is creating the find user by username function. So I can just say, first off, let's call the user model. So we can just say find user by username. Let me check through this function if this is what we want. Not pretty much, but let's just say find user by username function. Let me just copy it so I won't make mistake. So find user by username. All right, so find user by username. So inside our find user by username, basically we are trying to just search through the table. It's just like SQL query where we have all this command query, basically like search wherever table user is equal to this and all those stuffs. So basically that's what we are doing here. So inside here, so we just pass the username argument. So inside this guy now, we are just returning inside the users. You can see this users variable that we have here. So we'll just call it. So you say users the values. So sorry, am I not getting this? Okay, values. Then first where or none. Sorry, excuse me. All right, first where or none. So this is a function that we sort through our user model. So first where unknown, then we can just check if user.username is equal to username, that is the username the user is sending. So if it is not this username, then we can just return we're just returning this, basically. So first where unknown, so that's from the collection, what's it called, collection class from that itself. So we can just import this. So we import this first unknown. All right, so that's that for this find user by username. So the next thing now is to let me just put a documentation comment here, so we can just say find user by username. So the next thing now is find user by ID. So we can just say find user by ID. So inside here now, let me delete this. So we can just say user. So we can just say find user. Sorry. So find user by ID. So inside the user by ID, so just string, then we can just return the user, the ID of that particular user. So the next thing now is to create user. So we can say create user like this. So inside the create user, so we are just calling the user model. All right. So the user, then we can call create user. Then inside the user, there's some required data like the username and password, basically. So they are required. So I can just say required string username, because we need this to actually create a new user, and then string password hash like that. So after that, now we can just create an ID for that particular user. So we can just use UID, since we already have a constructor for it. So we can just call UID, then the v4, just to generate an ID for it. Then we can now call the user to be equal to our user, basically the ID that we just create here. So ID, then the username, should be ID username hash. So that is that. Then the next thing now is the user should be equal to the user ID. Then we can just return our user, basically. So that's pretty much it here. I'm just trying to get why this function is not defined. I want to see where it's coming from, but before that, let's just go through some other stuff. So inside our login now, we can just import this find user by username. So we can just import the user repository. This should be I think it should be hash password. So let's leave that. So inside our register as well, we can import find user by username like that. Then I think that's that. I think we are good for our register. We are good for our login. So let me just close this too. So inside our user model, we are good as well. Inside our user repository, we still having one error, still missing a line. So let me just So so we are good with this as well. So the next thing now is to so this first way or not supposed to be from the collection package. So I don't know why it's not getting imported, but let me just try and see if it's showing up. But regardless, let me just import it. Collection. So collection package has been installed. So to import collection package isn't a dependency, blah 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 blah. So what this is trying to say is that we have to install the collection package itself. So but it's not necessary right now, so we don't need to actually install it. So we can just leave it like this, otherwise we can just install it as well. But just to be on the safer side, so let's just install it. So just collection like that, so we can my project. So I just install it like that. So the next thing now, since inside our login, where do we have the secrets? Inside our login, where we have the secret key now, let me just create a constant, so where we can just store the our secret key, basically. So so if you check through our user repository now, so everything is cleared off already. So that's pretty much about that. So inside our constants now, so we can just create a single constant. So the constant will just be JWT secret. So JWT is, let's just name it JWT secret. Then we can just say just give something interesting. Let's just say super secret. Says super secret key 1045. Okay, not bad. So let's just leave it like this. So I can just copy this inside our login, and then just replace this with this. Let me import our constant. So that's pretty much it. So we are good to go now. So we are good to go with this. So inside our model now, inside our to do model, we have to update this to do model so it can require the user ID. So that's the only thing we are changing it. So it can require the user ID before it can actually like fetch or create any to do basically, or even update any to do basically. So inside here now, let me just say required. Supposed to actually have, yeah, okay, we'll do that later. So let's just say required, then this dot user ID. So user ID like that. Let me close that. So we are here to create the class. Let me just create it here. Let me just say user ID, then okay, user ID like that. Then inside, before we get there, let's just update this factory. So we can say user ID, sorry, so what's the user ID? Okay, so user ID, the JSON, the user ID like that. Then the last but not the least, inside our to JSON as well. So you can just call the user ID basically. So that's that for our to do model. I think there's an error inside this to do repository already. So it's already signaling that we are not passing the user ID since it's required. So to create a new to do now, you have to pass a user ID of that user that is creating to the to do. To update as well, you have to pass user ID as well. All right. So now the next thing now is just to update what's it called, our to do repository. So to do that now, since we already have the UID and the to dos here, so we'll just update all the function that we have here, get or to do. To get, we have to pass the user ID. So I can just mark string like that. Then we can say user ID. Okay, let me not use AI. So you can get where the change is coming from. So after the string user ID like this, then this, okay, let me just quit this. All right, so user ID, now we have the to do value, so we can just check where to do. I want to let you, this is a suggestion, so I want to allow you to see what was there before so you can better understand it. All right, so what we have currently is to do value dot to list, basically just fetching all the to do, but now we want to fetch for this particular user. So now let me just cut this out, so I can now say to dos dot values dot where, basically we are searching, it's just like running a check. So where to do, so we name it to do, so like that. Then we can say to do dot user ID is equal to the user ID the user is sending. So if the user ID is equal to the user ID, then we can now add it to list basically. So that's pretty much it for fetching out to do. So the next thing is okay, to get it to do, since the user has already fetched, then basically passing the ID. So this is still straightforward. Then to create it to do, the user have to pass user ID. So we can say user ID like this, then we can pass the user ID here to this our to do. So that's that. To update as well, it is important to pass user ID. So we can just say user ID. So inside our is complete as well, we can just pass user ID is equal to user ID. Yeah, so that's pretty much for delete. There's no need. Okay, for delete, yeah, you have to pass user ID as well. So let's just add user ID to it as well. So you have to pass your user ID so we can know. Let me convert this to block so we can better add the function. All right, so I can just, let me change this to do like this. So to do, so create a variable for it first, then we can check if to do is not equal to none, and to do dot user ID is equal to user ID. That is, we are checking if it's the user that actually wants to delete, then we can now remove. So remove basically. So that's pretty much about updating the to do repository. So we have updated this to do repository to actually request for the user ID of the user before creating, before fetching, before creating, and also before updating, and also before deleting basically. So you can see all the updates that we have created on this our to-do repository. So we are done with the login. So this login is pretty straightforward already. Register as well. So the next thing now is inside our to-do as well, because now we have make it compulsory that the user must pass the user ID. So you can see that it's already throwing error here. So we have to like pass the user ID as well to this our to do index. So after that now, so let's just update this index, our to do index, so we can get the user ID. So the first thing, since you have already created the get, post and all, is to get the user ID. So we'll just create create a contest here basically. So I can just say user should be context dot breed, then user basically. All right, so let me import this user. So that's our user model. So user basically, so content of root user. So inside the user now, but again, these are user model, and inside the user model we have the ID, the username and hash password. So that's what we are using here. So you can now call inside our getter method. Now we can just call user.id inside our create as well, user.id and the likes. So that's what we are doing here basically. So inside our get method now, getter to do, so I can just say user.id, that's passing the ID. Then that's pretty much it. Then for create, we can as well, after title we can pass user.id. Yeah, so I think that's all for this. So that's all for this. So the next thing is inside our dynamic route as well. So pretty much the same thing we did. So I'll just create, let me just copy it here. So I'll just do this same thing, this user. So let's import our user. Then the next thing now inside update. So you must, because inside our update now, if you check to the repository, this is our update. We have the ID, then the user ID. So I can just pass the user ID here. So let me just say user.id. Then inside our delete user.id as well. So that's pretty much for these two file. So basically what we are requesting for now is the ID of that user. So the user must be registered. We must pass the ID of that user for us to be able to perform any of this functionality basically. So with this we can we have been able to like secure what to do, tokenize the user authentication basically. So the next thing now, I think if we can just run through this check. So we have our JWT secrets, we have our to-do model that has been updated. Let me just format this. Okay, we have to-do repository as well that has been updated as well to request for the user ID. We have our user model, user repository for the functionality. We have the login. All right, so this is the login. So this is just spelling check. Yeah, we have the register as well. Then okay, so the next thing now is to update this middleware. So our middleware basically, the last time I mentioned for cross resources sharing, now that we add all this what's it called, security checker that we are only accepting inside the app. So now we are going to add extra security, extra middleware to our projects because of the authentication. So the next thing now, I'll just create a new middleware now. So let's just under here. So let's say handler, or even before that, let me just to make it simple, let me just create an handler here. So I can just say middleware to be handler, just call it handler again. Okay, so here we can just return the handler use, the use. So request logger, so bracket. So the request logger, close this. So the request logger now, it should be used now user. All right, request logger now, so we can use this to authenticate the user middleware and as well the cross resources sharing middleware. So instead of creating different middleware here, we can just have this single middleware that we handle both the middleware. So that's why I'm creating this. So now I can just, let me just use am I writing user? So use we are going to create the auth middleware later, so let me just write it onto middleware, then also use cross middleware. So cross middleware like that. All right, so inside this middleware now we can just update this and just call it cross. Let me just update it here. Should be cross middleware. Okay. All right, so that's that for this. We don't need to okay, we can just remove this what's it called, we can just remove all this extra curriculum here, so we can just go straight to like the context without requiring all this. So let me delete this, it's not required. Okay, I'm coming, I think I've deleted something. Let me just drag it pretty much. Okay, yeah, I think that's all. Yeah, that's all for our cross middleware. So the next thing now is the auth middleware. So let me just copy this guy here. So I can just create another handler, so I can just call it auth middleware like this. Then I can say handler, then handler like that. Yeah, basically. So that's pretty much, you can see that the error is cleared. So inside this middleware now, we can now perform some function. So the first thing is to let's start with this contest. Then sorry, okay, you can just mark asynchronous like this. So is to check the method as well, just like how we check inside the user repository, inside our login and register. So we can just check if contest dot request method basically is equal to http method dot options, then we can just return handler context like that. All right, so that's just the first check, just like the same thing we did in our login and sign up. So the next thing now is to check the auth header, because we're using the JWT, and JWT in integration, just that's like the authorization, and we have to pass like a bearer token to it for it to actually authenticate the user to perform any function. So we add auth header, so we can just say contest dot request dot headers. Yeah, the authorization like that. So the authorization, then we can now check if auth header is equal to none, or if auth header dot start with, or if basically what you're saying is if it does not start with bearer. So if once we are testing our endpoint, I will explain that part to you as well. If it does not start with bearer, then we can say return response unauthorized, or let me say missing or invalid authorization header. Yeah, let's just keep it like that. Okay, I think let me close this first. All right, so we can just pass this message to the user, that is you are missing something or invalid authorization header like that. All right, so that was the next check. Then after this, now we can now get a token. So let's say let's create a variable. We just say token, final token auth header dot substring. So for this, I'm going to explain it soon. So let's just create a try and catch to fetch, to like go through the token with this package. So this JWT package is the one that we are using for JWT authorization. So it will scan through the authorization, the JWT code that was generated earlier, and see if the phrase is actually authorized or not. So let's just say try, let's catch as well. Let me just put this one here first. All right, so instead of our try now, we can just call JWT. So JWT, then the JWT class dot verify. So verify the token. So this token, the first 7 figures, so removing the what's it called, last 7. So substring basically, so you can see substring starts from and end exclusively. So if you say substring 1, it will remove the first. So this guy is removing the first 7 character of our auth header basically, which is this bearer basically. All right, so JWT token, then we call our secret, just like how we have inside login, the JWT secret. If I go through it again, so the same thing we have here, so you can see. All right, so you can see this one is sign, this one is verify. So let me rewrite this, should be JWT. Let me import the package. Where's the package? Yeah, this is the package. Okay, so let me import our constant file. Okay, yeah, so that's that. So the next thing now is our payload. So let's just say payload should be equal to JWT payload. So JWT payload, let's mark it as map. So payload, basically payload is what we are sending, like the username and password. Those are the payload. So we cannot check among the payload the ID, so we can just pass username, user ID. So you can say payload the ID that the user is passing. Let's map it as string. So from this moment now, we can now verify from the function that we have inside our user repository, which is find user by ID. This find user by ID that we have here as well, so we can make use of it. So inside our middleware, I can just call, and let me just say final user is equal to find the user by ID. So inside our find user by ID, we're basically finding the user. So we can import our user repository first. So from there now we can now check if user is not known. So that means if it is not known, I mean it's equal to none rather, then we can like return user is not found. That means the user does not exist. So if it's equal to none, sorry, and then we can return handler just context dot provide. So provide user, that's user. So from here now we can just create let me just create this. Okay, so it should be just create the user like that. All right, so let me import the user model as well. Okay, so that's pretty much it. So inside our catch, in case there's error, so we can just return invalid token, so with the error message. So that's pretty much it, basically with our handler. So what we are doing with our handler basically is check the bearer token, I mean the authorization from the JWT that we are using. So the JWT is the authorization part of our testing. So for anybody to be able to like make a request to our endpoint, they must pass authorization. So for each authorization we have the bearer token. So it must start with bearer token. So we are first doing a validation check here if it starts with bearer. So with this, if it does not start, then we are returning missing or invalid authorization header. So the next thing now is to fetch the token. So the first thing is we are removing the bearer that the user is sending, so we can get the actual token. So that's the substring 7 rather. Yeah, so after removing that, then we have the token itself. So here now we are now validating, or we are verifying the token. Keep in mind inside our login we are signing the secret key, the JWT token, and inside this middleware where we are submitting the token, we are verifying it if it's actually a valid token or not. So if it's valid, then we can run through it. We can go through it, otherwise it will return an error. So that's pretty much it on this note. So the next thing now is to test our endpoint if everything is working as they ought to. I'm sure this video is already long, so let's just quickly test through it and see if everything is working. So to start our server, so just run dartfrog dev. All right, so dartfrog dev our localhost 8080. So let me just copy this. Let's test. You should get invalid users. So okay, let's now get to to this. So you can see missing or invalid authorization header. So that's because you're not passing any authorization header. So now inside our Postman, so I open Postman. I have Postman on my VS Code. So to have Postman, your code editor is available on VS Code called anti-gravity basically. So just go to the extension tab, you see, just search Postman and you see it. So this is my Postman. I'm just creating new screen here. So now you can see inside our Postman now we have parameters, we have authorization, we have headers, bodies, create settings. So this is the authorization. So if we check through the authorization, we have type. So we have nonce, API, basic authentication, bearer token. So this is the one I'm referring to. So for us to actually fetch like this now, we have to pass a token to it, but we currently don't have any token because we don't have any user. So if let me just return this, let me just load it. So you see missing or invalid authorization header. So now the next thing now is to create a new user. So to create a new user now, I will create another let me just clear this my tab up. So there's no need. So let me just create a new Postman tab now. All right, so let me copy this again inside. Remember that dartfrog is route based, so we have inside our route we have authentication, we have to-dos, we have user and the like. So this is for the login and register. Then instead of to-do, we can just call auth. Then let me try login first. So that's login. So basically we don't have any account, so let me go to the body raw. Remember that we are passing username and password. Let me just say username like this. Let me pass TechWithSam. Let me change this to JSON instead of raw text. All right, so TechWithSam. Let me say password. Say pass 1 2 3 4. Okay. All right, let's send it like that. So as you can see, method not allowed because we are passing get. So let me change to post. So let me send. Okay, so we can see invalid username or password. That means we currently don't have any username or password. We can pass better error message, but we can as well pass invalid username and password for this. So since we don't have any user for this particular account, I'll just change it to register. So this register now, let me send. So you can see register now, it pass an ID, which is ID. This is the user ID, then the username now. So basically I can log in with this my account now. So we are here to generate the token for this particular user because user just registered. So now we have to log in. So now I can just move to login now. So this is response for our register, the ID and user username. If we go through this user repository, when we are creating a new user, you can see that we are fetching the ID and the username. The password hash now we are not returning it basically because there's no need for it. So you can you just get the gist like that. Yeah. So let me go back to login now. So now let me just send for login. So you can see now that the login return a response. So this is the token. So this token now we can use it through our app. So if I copy this token, so let me just copy this token, then we go back to this place where we are calling to do. If I send it again, missing or invalid authorization header. So instead of our bearer token now, let me go back, then paste what I copied from our login. So this is a token. So if I send it now, okay, we are getting internal server error. So let's just check it inside. Okay, so we're getting internal server error. Okay, where are we getting that? Oh, so I think the issue is we just want to fetch what's it called, our to do, instead of we are not submitting, and even the data that we have is empty. So that's why sending this, we can better handle that. But let me just change it to get, since we just want to fetch basically, and our authorization token is still here. So let me send again. So you can see that it's currently empty right now. So we can see that it's to do. So that means we must pass this. So if I want to create now, so let me just change this to post now, then pass a body. Yeah, let me change to JSON. Yeah, let me create the title. So basically it's title we are passing to our to do. So let me say this is my first to do. Not that is because, let me just change, let me change it to not. Let me send to see if it's going to like create the to do. So if we run it, as you can see, missing or invalid authorization header. So if I go back, let me just change it to the bearer token. Right, so it is there. So let me just send. So you can see to do created. Let me go back to let me change this to second. Send to do created. Let me just create like 5 fourth. Oh, what's the spelling again? Honestly, I can't remember the spelling of fourth, but anyways, yeah, let's just send that 5th. All right, yeah, cool. All right, so let me just change it to get, so we can fetch the data. So we can fetch the data now from our, so you can see the data basically. So that's pretty much it. So if I we're here to create logout, but that's pretty much it. So if I want to log in again now, it's going to generate a new token. So if I hit my login, you can see that the token has changed. If I try to fetch this data, let's see. Okay, the token is still active, but we can update that later to make the token expire once these are already generated any token. So that's pretty much it about JWT authentication method. So just a quick assignment, since this is a course. So the next thing now is you can now integrate this our backend feature into the to do app. I mean the front end part, the Flutter app, so you can add the authentication, the user register and login. So make sure to add that before the next video. So just create we already have the app here, so you can go through this source code, the Flutter app, so you can just add simple register and log into it. I've already set up the integration. So what you just have to add is the bearer token for passing the token and integrating the what's it called, the authentication, the username, the user register, sign up and user sign in basically. So make sure to do that. Give yourself the test, and in the next video I'm going to be walking through it if I have the time. But most importantly, this might be the last video. The next video will be about deploying on DartGlobe. So we'll be deploying this our backend project on DartGlobe. So DartGlobe will give us the ability to like have access to, we are still running on local. So with DartGlobe, you can actually have like an endpoint URL, basically base URL, so we can manage our backend service is actually working for scalability and the likes. So make sure you check the other videos from part 1, part 2, part 3, and this is part 4. Make sure you watch everything. If you have any question, you can as well drop it in the comment section. You can as well join my Discord server where you can ask questions as well. And make sure to subscribe to this YouTube channel. Support me by subscribing, like the video, and also drop your feedback if you are getting it, or if you want better explanation about anything or any other feature requirement whatsoever, and I'll be happy to help. So stay tuned, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.